Welcome to Over-Caffeinated. This is our socially distanced version of Over-Caffeinated. You can see we're all pretty far apart here.
Hello down there.
Yes, yeah, it's good to see you. I'm going to have to talk even louder than normal, which is hard to believe, but I'll do my best. So if you haven't watched before, our slogan is like the view, but not terrible. So we're kind of doing our own version of this. And we're coming to you live. This is our first one that we've done that's not been social distance in a while. Last time we did a Zoom with FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, but we're back in a place where we're very far apart, but we're at, no questions, hands down, the best ribs in Nashville and maybe the country. Peg Leg Porker. Anytime you come to Nashville, if you have not been here, please visit. My parents came last week and we came here on Saturday because every time they have to make a stop here.
And we're supporting the attire.
And we're supporting, yeah, we're all Peg Leg Porker fans today.
Love it.
So, who we had today is the head honcho from Peg Leg Porker, Carey Bringle. Welcome as our guest this week.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you having me and glad to be on the show.
Absolutely. And in addition to owning this place, you're basically everywhere. I mean, you're on Fox News, TLC, the Travel Channel. Any show about barbecue, you seem to be on.
I've been fortunate to be asked to be on a lot of TV shows, which has been always, it's good for business.
That's absolutely right. And on top of this, we also have Beacon CEO and the only guy who I think loves Peg Leg as much as I do, and Justin Owen.
That's right.
So yeah, we're the two
mandatory staff outing.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We had a staff outing here. That's our last staff outing. So we know what's good here. So ironically, today happens to be National Chicken Wing Day. So with that being said, right here we have some chicken wings. We're not going to do coffee today. We're going to do chicken wings. So as we eat this and we drink our Yazoo beers, we're going to try these out. And Carey, tell us about what separates these from other wings and why these are so good.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do at Peg Leg Porker, we're a Memphis-style barbecue place. I was born and raised in Nashville, but my family's all from Memphis. These are Memphis-style wing. It's a full wing. We don't just do the pieces of the wing, which we prefer. So we serve you four. They're smoked. So they're smoked with a little bit of garlic salt on them, and they go for a little over an hour, and they get that smoke on them. Then we chill them down, and then to serve them, we drop them in the fryer, and we fry them for about 4 minutes to crisp up that skin, and then we toss them in our dry seasoning. That's what you have in front of you right now. Then we serve it with a side of Alabama white sauce.
Alabama white sauce,
we've got barbecue sauce, or we can toss them in hot sauce. So we offer them 3 different ways, but you've got them dry today, which is our most popular way.
Now, if you put this dry rub on actual garbage, it would still taste good. I don't. This thing can literally make anything taste good. I feel like kids doing medicine. This would be great to put on medicine to make it. It's unbelievable. This is so good. I don't think I've ever had a smoked wing quite like this, but that seasoning is excellent.
Well, with the crisp, with the dry rub, and there's nothing better than your dry rub. That on the ribs, it's amazing. I went to law school in Memphis, had great barbecue. Central's my favorite place down there. Hands down, Peg Leg has the best ribs, and it's the dry rub. And here you go on the chicken. So
well, thank you.
I'm excited for the new venture.
Yeah, now that I'm disgusting and had stuff all over me, we can start going here. So one of the things, 2020's not looked great so far. I think a lot of people have had issues. So before we start, let's try to look on the bright side, kind of in the spirit of optimism. So I want to hear something that's happened to you or happened around you in the last couple months that's been positive. Just anything. It could be something small, but just the idea that we've had a lot of bad things in the news. Let's look at something positive. We'll start with you, Carey. What's something that's been good that's happened to you recently?
Well, before this pandemic came along, we were on an upward trajectory, which was great. The pandemic's been hard. We had to do furloughs. But, even in the middle of the furloughs, as I was laying my staff off temporarily, I had one of my staff members come up to me and he said, I know you know how hard this is on everybody. I can see how hard it is on you, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about you right now and how hard this must be for you to have to do this. And that was very positive and uplifting for me, and I felt, it was great that I've got people on my team that really care and know how hard it is, not just as them as an employee, but as an owner to go through this type of thing.
Absolutely. You see it with business too. I saw that Southwest, I think 28% of their employees took a furlough because they loved working there so much and they wanted to save the company, which is always great to see.
Oh, yeah.
Justin, what about you? What's something good that's happened to you in the past couple months?
Yeah, I think that's a similar thing with our team. We've gone remote, and those are challenging times to learn how to operate in a different environment. But our work has never been in more demand than it has been now, whether it's the government shutting down businesses and us being able to really engage in support of those businesses and knock out this notion that you're either essential or you're non-essential. And for non-essential workers going, wait a minute, my paycheck is essential to me, and the services that you provide, the goods you provide, the food you provide is essential to your community and the people who come here. And so really being able to spearhead that effort and encouraging the governor to move away from that and allowing businesses to be open if they can socially distance and be sanitized and provide a safe environment for people to be in. Playing a role in that was really, we were meant for such a time as this, really, at Beacon, and it was cool to see our team step up and make the most of it.
Mayor Cooper didn't quite get the memo yet, but maybe he'll get it eventually. We'll see what happens. So let's move on. There was a kind of a shock poll that I saw recently. I think it was a Cato poll, but it said 62% of Americans are afraid to say things on social media because they're afraid others might find it offensive. And this is not a political thing. It's over half of independents, half of Democrats, about 77% of Republicans said this. Secondarily, 36% of strong conservatives supported firing Biden supporters, and 50% of strong liberals said they wanted to fire Trump supporters. So does this trend concern you, and why? Carey, we'll start with you. I mean, is this something that you're concerned about?
This is what keeps me up at night. I mean, this keeps me up at night. We're in an era where somebody can say something about you or can take something that you said out of context, and this cancel culture will overnight destroy a business that you may have spent 20 years to build. I've watched it happen in Nashville. I watched it happen a couple of weeks ago. I wrote a letter that was nonpartisan about our tax situation, and I got slammed. And I got slammed. I got attacked. I had people. Don't ever go on Reddit.
That's a good tip, generally. Don't go on Reddit.
Generally, I spent a very depressing afternoon one day on Reddit with probably a bunch of people in their basements that never eat at my place anyway, saying how much they hated me.
Between video game sessions, they have time to write that.
Yeah, and so it's very, very concerning. I've watched fellow business owners be called racist by employees that hadn't been there a year, or that they fired the person that said something. It is scary. And when I wrote that letter and I had people that disagree with me, they published my home address. They published the address of rental properties that I have. They went after and attacked me at a personal level. And really I was trying to do them a favor. It doesn't matter what your affiliation is. I feed everybody. We feed the community. I had somebody I went to high school with send me a private message asking me why I wasn't speaking out more about the cause that they believed in. And then, when I said, well, we have, they offered to sit down with me and lecture me and tell me about the movement and how I could do my part. And, the arrogance of somebody that's my age that wants to come and educate me about doing something. And incidentally, we had just finished up feeding 35,000 Nashvillians for free in conjunction with Operation Barbecue Relief over a 2-week period. We gave out 35,000 free meals. And I still got attacked. I liked somebody's apology for something they had done on social media that had gotten blown out of proportion. And I got attacked for liking somebody who was trying to make something right. It is scary. My wife will tell you, this is the number one thing that I'm concerned with and that keeps me up at night. It is a scary, scary notion.
And it's not just the internet trolls anymore, right? You used to get that and just blow it off, whatever. But you have literally elected city council members attacking you, very influential community leaders attacking you over your stand, trying to bully you into silence or out of the city because you disagree with their position on something. They got elected to take positions and to be criticized for those positions by people who didn't agree with it. And they got elected to represent people. And even if you don't live in their district, the lack of decorum for some members of this Metro Council and others in the political world during this time is astonishing. And it's really sad based off what America's built on. We've always had that back and forth. Thomas Jefferson called John Adams a hermaphrodite at some point when they fought against each other, ran against each other, but they still came together for the good of the country. And we don't see that happening anymore.
We've got this notion of, hey, keep an open mind, but unless you don't agree with me, you obviously hadn't kept an open mind or you're too stupid to know any better.
Yep.
And that's a very frustrating position to deal with. When I was growing up, I remember asking my daddy who he voted for, and he looked at me and he said, "It's none of your business." And if a student knows a teacher's political affiliation, we've got a problem. I don't ask my customers when they come in what's their political affiliation. I don't ask my employees what's your political affiliation. I take a stand as a citizen, and if I want to make that stand public, then great, and I can be criticized for it, and I can take that. But personal attacks or just shut up and pay your fair share, or you're doing better than most and therefore you deserve to pay more even though you don't use more services, that's just a crock. It's just not a valid argument.
And it's great when people virtue signal instead of actually, like, you just fed 35,000 people, but someone has to sit on their couch and say, you're not doing enough for this.
Absolutely.
Even though you actually did something. They can go on the internet and say all they want, but it's a tough thing. But I guess that's what happened in Nashville City Council when you need like 12 votes to get elected with 40 different council members. A lot of crazy people get on there, which brings us to our next topic, crazy people on the city council. So I want to talk about.
I thought we only had like 30 minutes for this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we got five. I'm just naming all of them. But Carey wrote a letter that went viral. I mean, it took off nationally. It just wasn't here in Nashville. And essentially, you said this is the worst time to raise taxes after the government shut you down. We cannot afford it this time. Now, a Nashville councilwoman, Emily Benedict, essentially said that it doesn't really matter how you feel because you have a bigger savings account than your employees. So what I want to hear from you is, it's not just her that's divorced from reality. There's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people, I think, most of them on the far left, who do feel that way. You feel like, oh, so what can you tell these people who maybe have never owned a business, who think that socialism is the way to go, who just haven't worked in the private sector, why that's not right, and that's not the right way to think about it, and what owning a business really means?
Sure. I had this conversation with my VP of Operations this morning, Deborah. This is what people don't. We've been in business here at Peg Leg Porker for 7 years. I was building the brand of Peg Leg Porker starting 15 years ago, with sauces and rubs and going out with a presence, shirts, hats, whatever. I started working at age 13. I'm 51 now. The reason that Peg Leg Porker is successful is because of the many failures that I've had in the past. Sure. It's because of the experience. So it didn't take me. Peg Leg Porker is not 7 years of success. Peg Leg Porker is 35, 40 years of hard work to get me to this point to where I could be successful, and I would know what mistakes to avoid and how to be successful, how to market, how to treat people when they work for me, and how to build a team. And so, to say, hey, you didn't build that, or the city did you a favor, that's just not accurate. We helped build the Gulch. When I went to go start this business, I had a dream, but I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had virtually no money for starting a business. I went to 3 separate banks over the course of a year. They all turned me down. They couldn't do it, and it was right on the heels of the banking crisis. So they had even more strict guidelines. So I went and hustled. I found somebody that believed in my vision and in my company and in me. And I got a private investor to come in and do that. Within 6 months, I bought him out because I had the foresight to do that and understood that I wanted to own this all on my own. Then within another 3 years, he owned half of this building with me. We bought the building together because I made that deal work through something that was very creative, where other people were saying, you'll never be able to do that. And I said, you know what? There's always a way to do it. You just have to find the right avenue. I bought him out of the building after 3 years. Great for me. He made a 1,200% return on his investment.
Not too shabby.
Great for him. But it was, I took the can't, never could attitude. If you keep saying I can't, you never will. If you keep saying I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to be successful, then you'll find a way to make that happen. But being a business owner, there's a reason that business owners have a lot of mental anguish and stress. It's because they get constantly told, you didn't do that, or I need to be making as much as you, but I don't want to take any of the risk, and I don't want to spend the last 35 years learning how to do it. Yep. And so, and then even when you're successful, you feel guilty when you drive a nicer car, and you want your people to be successful and you want to bring them up. But people who haven't done this need to understand that the mental toll that it takes to be an entrepreneur and to start a business is very heavy. It's very heavy on your family and it's heavy on you. And we want to do it, and we're driven, and we have to do it, almost just in order to survive. But it takes a toll. And with that toll and with that risk comes the reward if you're successful. And I praise people that have built it on their own.
And you've been there, you've done that, you've made sacrifices, you've had to lay off employees, you've had to make very tough decisions to stay afloat in life. Yet now you have government officials, and you talked about this in your open letter to the mayor. They make no sacrifices. The city itself made zero sacrifices before asking you for a 34% increase in the taxes you pay.
Yes.
And you got criticized for calling that out, but it wasn't just because you didn't care about the city. It's because in order to succeed in life, you have to make sacrifices.
Absolutely.
You can't, as a city, have twice the debt as the entire state of Tennessee and still make that work and provide the services that we expect as a city. And kudos to you for standing up and making that case.
You can't. And the thing about it is, I deeply care about this city. Born and raised here, graduated from Hillsborough. I moved to Memphis for 3 years after school, and then I moved back because I wanted to raise my family here. When I see the last 10 years of our prosperity and then see us in the debt that we're in, and then see an increase like this, what's so frustrating about it, if this increase did something to solve the problem, and we were going to be out of this problem in 2-3 years, I might say, well, let's take it on the chin and let's do this, and we're going to be there. But this mayor did not furlough anybody. He has not done any rolling layoffs or furloughs. They have not cut the budget. They have not been creative in their solutions to get more revenue outside of a property tax. And, they hadn't done it. They've given raises in the middle of this. Yep. So when I see this, it was just a money grab. It's not a money grab to save our city. It's a money grab to get us to next year to where we're going to go spend more money. And so the problem has not been solved. If the problem were being addressed, it'd be one thing. It has not been addressed. And that's what I want to make very clear. And this shut up and we had a lower tax rate 10 years ago, it's a bullshit argument. When our assessments are as high as they are, then it doesn't matter what the rate is. It's what you actually pay. Peg Leg Porker will actually pay $6,000 a month for a piece of property that we already own, just for the privilege of sitting here and running our business. Should a business have to pay $6,000 a month to do business in the city of Nashville?
That's just a property tax.
Yeah.
That's just property tax. That's not all the other
fees
taxes.
and regulations that you have to comply with.
Yeah.
Or be shut down by the government and not even be allowed to open.
Absolutely.
But thankfully we own an amphitheater and we did a water park. So that's what the government should be spending money on, the important things like that. And it's infuriating to see that. So we'll move on to maybe some happier things. Not quite yet.
Sorry.
Well, no. I
don't know. I kind of like I like this.
I think he's our new spokesman. I mean, that's what we. But I mean, that's everything's exactly right. So we just released. Speaking of property tax, we just released our City Freedom Index, which ranks the 30 most populous cities in Tennessee by overall freedom. Unsurprisingly, Nashville came in last. Memphis came in substantially better, 25th, which is 5 spots better. But I want to hear from both of you. So, Justin, you're a homeowner in the city. Carey, you're, I think, both, but you also own the business here. So, talk about how important things like tax rate, regulations, things like that are when you're starting a new business, when you're trying to figure out, I want to put my business here. I know you're about to open another place in the nation. And how much do you look at that? And same thing for you, Justin. When you move somewhere, how much does that impact where you move? So, Carey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking for the right mix. For what we do with our business, I'm looking for the right mix of commercial and residential in a neighborhood so that we feed both families and business people, whether it's lunch or dinner. That's what I'm looking for. What I never thought about was the burden of a tax increase on my company. And unfortunately, most small business people won't think about this. It's something that just goes by the wayside, and now it's become a very real thing. So even if you lease in Nashville, you're typically on a triple net lease. Yep. Now, if you leased, say, down the road here, Rudy's Jazz Club, and they leased right when that building first got redone, and it was still the old building, but then it was getting renovated. Well, then they get an increase in the assessment value. So now their taxes go up because of that. And then they get a 34% tax increase on top of that. Rudy's never counted on their taxes tripling on their rent to the point where they might be equal to or more than their actual rent for the month. They just, you don't. That's something that's very hard to plan for, and it's really killing a lot of these small businesses. So there's a lot of factors that you look at. Unfortunately, the taxes get overlooked until it's too late and the person is already in the lease, and then it starts to happen to their neighborhood.
And Justin, as a homeowner, I mean, how much did you look into that, and how much do you wish you did? I know that you're in East Nashville.
Yeah.
You're frustrated right now.
And so, we've had the benefit of moving into East Nashville. I've lived there since 2008, before it really started booming. And we got a house before, skyrocketing prices where people were buying houses back to back from each other, $500,000. And so we benefited from that in terms of equity and in terms of how much our home is worth. But as you said, it's not like you have that money in your pocket to pay. We can afford it, but between the time we bought our house and now with this new tax increase, our property taxes have gone up almost 2.5 times. So 250% over that course of time. We can make it work and we can make sacrifices elsewhere, but I think of my neighbor who's been in her home since the 1960s. She can't afford that. She's on a very fixed income, and to make her pay more for literally not changing anything about her lifestyle. She's not making more money. She's not buying more stuff. She's literally in the same home that she's been in for 50 years.
And probably
years.
Less safe now.
Exactly.
Than she was
then.
Beforehand.
She's not getting the services from the city that she got then, for sure, yet she's having to pay more. So it really is a strain on people. And I love living in the city. I love being close to good restaurants, being close to our office downtown. But now that we're going remote more, I like being out on the lake and kayaking and being close to family. And so the suburbs are looking better and better every decision that this mayor and council make.
And Mark, to add to that a little bit, what people will make the argument, well, your building has increased 500, 1,000-fold, so you've got all of that equity in that building. Well, that's great, but it doesn't do me any good unless I sell the building.
Right.
And the other thing is, if the city is taking $72,000 in taxes every year, then in 10 years they've wiped out $720,000 of that profit. So the argument that, hey, well, your building's worth more, so you pay more, it's just it's asinine. It doesn't. I'm getting penalized either way. It's a net loss for me either way. The more I get taxed.
And the whole point you made about it matters how much your property is worth. So in Memphis, even though they have a higher property tax, hypothetically, businesses pay way less because their properties are worth less.
Yeah.
So even though it's a higher tax rate, it's way more unfair here where you're paying $72,000 a month.
I'll give you a prime example. The Rendezvous in Memphis. They're friends of ours. It's a great restaurant. It's an institution. Been there 70 years. They're in a similar space. They're actually down in a basement, but they've got an upstairs space. They've probably got the same amount of square feet that we have at Peg Leg, probably maybe even more. They do about 3 times the revenue, I would guess. They're in downtown. They're in the heart, right by all the tourist attractions. So they're feeding the same crowd and everything. They have a tax rate that was almost double Nashville's. When you go with city and county taxes, they were at close to 7%. I'll be paying $72,000. The Rendezvous will be paying $18,000.
Wow.
There you go.
That's a perfect location.
And Memphis right now is in much better financial shape than the city of Nashville.
Well, in a lot of ways too. There's many situations in our City Freedom Index. I think you said they were 25th, I believe. I mean, the fact that, we always have joked about Memphis being the armpit of Tennessee, but in reality, Nashville's driven itself into the ground so much that Memphis is on the rise. Memphis is sort of the phoenix that has risen back up and is a very attractive place, much less all of these other communities across our state who are competitive. We just posted recently about Cookeville, who also had a tornado, also is facing pandemic situations, has their own challenges, but they survived without a property tax increase at all, much less a modest one, much less a 34% one.
Yeah, we don't agree with the mayor there and everything, but I mean, in Memphis, they've done a better job. Mayor Strickland has done a better job, and we see some of the things that Cooper has lacked at. But it's worth looking at the City Freedom Index. You go to beacontn.org/freest-cities and check that out. So we're going to move on. We're getting the fun topics now, and this can be a little shorter, but these are good. So Justin knows I just started watching the show Seinfeld. I never watched it before. I know it's Justin's favorite, but I haven't laughed once in 2 seasons. I don't think it's funny. I don't understand it. I'm going to keep watching to see what happens.
Millennials.
But I put it up there with Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones in terms of overrated television shows, which you probably. But here's my question. You all have different tastes than me, I'm sure. What is one TV show through your life that you think is the most overrated, where you're like, a lot of people like it, but you just don't get it? So, Carey, we're going to start with you. Name a show that you just don't like as much as other people.
What's that one with the crew with the Sheldon and
Yes, that's
that-
mine.
Oh,
He
Big Bang
took
Theory.
mine.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory?
I hate that show.
Awful. Awful.
I don't know does anybody actually like that though? I feel like they're.
Oh, it's like
it
the
might be
number
like
one rated.
Nickelback.
It's like the number one rated comedy on
Okay.
television.
Mine is actually the same. I'd hate to do that for boring purposes, but every time I hear that voice, because it used to come on right after Seinfeld, so I'd watch Seinfeld. As soon as I would hear that voice, I would scream at my wife to change the television.
It's like the trashy version of Frasier. Like Frasier's actually funny and smart. This is not funny and smart. I don't understand why. Well, I agree. I'm surprised that we agree on that. Is there any other ones that either of you feel like is really overrated?
I think Friends is overrated. I mean, I just never really got into it. Maybe it's more of a girl thing.
I didn't get into it. I mean, Friends was okay, but I didn't get into it much.
Okay. Well, Friends is a pretty good show, I think.
It's not terrible.
It's not as good as the OC, but it's not bad. So we'll move on from there.
Are we going to best TV show?
Yeah. Okay. We'll take your favorite TV show too. What is it?
Eastbound and Down.
Go for you.
God, he just nailed that. That's right.
Anything Danny McBride does.
That's right. And Don Johnson is in that too, who I have a question about him later.
Ah,
Yeah,
nice.
Kenny Power's father in that show.
Yep.
One of the best shows.
Yep.
Well, you know mine. It's Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, okay. Well, he wins that one because Eastbound and Down is way funnier than that.
And now I love Succession. It's amazing.
Succession is amazing. It's a great
Amazing.
show.
So, sports are finally starting to come back to being shut down. The NBA season actually starts soon. We just had baseball start. I noticed when it came back, I didn't miss baseball at all. I haven't even watched the first game. I'm excited for the NBA season to start. But my question is, out of the 4 major sports, if one was gone forever, which one would you pick? Which would you miss the least?
So the 4 major.
The 4 major sports. So I guess hockey's a major sport. I don't count it, but fine. Carey, what about you?
NBA.
Oh, no, that's the wrong answer.
We're going to keep agreeing on it. Mark is a huge NBA. Utah Jazz of all
Utah
things.
Jazz. That's why Rudy's Jazz Club. Rudy Gobert's our center, so I like to.
Nice.
So mine is NBA. I would have said MLS if you expanded it to other.
We're talking about real sports,
But look,
so that's why.
hockey, I got my Preds face mask going. I'm excited about the playoffs coming back, and I'm a huge Braves fan, so I've been watching a little bit of baseball. Really weird to watch with no fans and fake music and like crowd noise being piped in, but it's better than no sports at all.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for the NBA, but we'll disagree with these two. So the other day I was on Facebook and I saw a current picture of my childhood crush. I don't remember. Do you remember the song "Torn" by Natalie Imbruglia? It was a '90s song.
Yeah.
I loved her. She's like 50 and still looks incredible. Like it's unbelievable how good she's aged. But I saw a picture. I'm like, wow. I had a picture of her on my 6th grade desk. So my question is, you guys are all different ages, both older than me. I should make that clear. Who was your childhood crush when you were a kid, say grade school, maybe high school? Who was the one woman like you had a poster of, a picture of that you couldn't get enough of? So who's yours, Carey?
Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, that's a good one.
She was in Labyrinth with David Bowie, the Muppets. She was smoking. I tell you, I must have watched that movie a dozen times.
And she still looks good too. She
still looks great.
She's just not in you, yeah.
Absolutely.
What about you, Justin?
Shania Twain.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
She was hot.
She was hot.
I remember her one album. It was the first single I got. It was like basically her like covering up everything.
Yeah.
And my mom was not super happy when she saw it single on my thing. But
It was
And you didn't
scandalous.
listen to a
Yeah,
single
right,
song.
right.
It was
Country
when she released that "Any Man of Mine" video, dancing around that crop top, scandalous.
Yes.
It was scandalous.
it was, but her music's good too. I feel like she's hot, and her music. And again, another
She is
woman
a
who's
good artist.
aged incredibly. I mean,
She
she's
is.
like 60 now, and the fact that her husband cheated on her is insane. But whatever, we'll move on from that. So, last question before we go into the this or that. You're about to die. You have 1 meal left, so you're put on death row because you fought against the property tax. They decided to execute you for that. What is the last meal you're having? So it could be from anywhere, but what is 1 meal? It could be homemade. It could be from anywhere. Justin, we'll start with you on this one. What do you think your last?
Well, I've
meal
got to
is?
say peg leg ribs, right?
If
If not that, I love lobster. So like a lobster tail and a good fillet.
Go to Red Lobster. Would that be your choice? Of
Yeah,
place?
not Red Lobster.
Outback. That makes sense. Okay. so what
Joe's
about
Crab Shack,
right? What about you, Carey? What's your last meal?
It's tough, but I might have to say chip beef on toast.
Oh
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Love chip beef on toast. We're not talking about people who are like, oh, that's shit on a shingle. shit on a shingle, it's typically ground beef and the gravy. I'm talking about chipped beef.
Right.
With gravy over toast.
I feel like the state would love your last meal. It's like a $4 meal.
Yeah,
they could do it very cheap.
probably
Yours
a dollar.
I
think you had to add this to the menu.
Yeah, yours a little bit pricier there.
Love chipped beef on toast.
So we're gonna do this thing called This or That, where we give you two things. You pick which one you like and a sentence reason why. So Carey, we'll start with you. Pulled pork or brisket?
Pulled pork.
Oh, pulled pork, definitely.
No question. Okay.
Don't you have a shirt that's like, if you want brisket, go to Texas or something?
I do. And the funny thing is, we're going to serve brisket at our new place. I love brisket.
It's good.
Oh
It's
man, a
just
little inconsistent there, but yeah, I will say that Jack's not great at most things, but their brisket's pretty good at
brisket is
Jack's.
good.
I'll say that. Okay, Megan Barry or David Briley? There's a fun one. Who do you prefer? You have to pick one, and you can't say that they're both awful.
I'd say Briley.
I might pick Megan Barry over the current mayor.
Oh wow, man!
But it was at least entertaining when she was mayor.
Yeah, she blocked us on Twitter. That's an interesting.
She did.
Yeah, she did block us on
Nice.
Twitter.
She actually agreed to be on this show at one point until Mark had to tell her, you were going to get pork of the year in our annual pork report.
For our pork report, which we did the biggest instance of government.
And then she blocked us on Twitter.
She did that. Okay, whiskey or beer?
What can you do in a like any whiskey? Because you know
Any
I'm a
whiskey or
huge
any beer,
Scotch
yeah,
fan,
you
so
can
I
pick
drink
the brand.
Scotch religiously.
Is there a brand?
In bourbon. My favorite is Balvenie, but I'll drink pretty much anything.
Whiskey.
Okay. I think you know from our interview with John Rich that whiskey's not my choice.
Well, yeah. So Mark, we had to take a shot of whiskey and did not do well.
I almost threw up with John Rich's
But
whiskey.
you
and
have
stuff.
a new whiskey, right?
We own, well, it's not new. We've had Peg Leg Porker Bourbon for 7 years.
That's awesome.
And it's going to be in the Wall. Did you say it's going to be in the Wall Street Journal this week?
It was just in the Wall Street Journal this weekend, last weekend.
What do they say about it? Is it they're just
They did a barbecue from A to Z, and they featured something for every letter, and we were W for whiskey was Peg Leg Porker Tennessee Straight Bourbon.
That is awesome.
I will not try it, but if you like whiskey, I would come down here and
I
try it.
will
It doesn't
try
make
it.
you throw up.
Very good.
Okay, the Tennessean or the Nashville scene? What would you rather read?
Well, if there are other uses besides reading, then I think the Tennessean's probably softer.
I'm probably going to say the scene.
Well, they voted you best barbecue. I mean,
Yeah.
it's absurd. I mean, as much as we like, you didn't win best ribs the last 2 years, which is an absurd thing, and I will fight for that.
Who won best ribs?
It was the one up there, one north of Broadway, or south of Broadway. What was it?
Oh, Martin's.
Martin's, yeah.
Oh.
They're fine. Not even close as good. Don't go to Martin's. It's okay. But this is much better. Well, I like the Tennessee and fine. I'm going to defend the Tennessee, and it's much better than the Nashville scene, but they're both fine.
They just cover us, and so Mark's going to suck up.
Yeah, I have to. I mean, yeah, I really shift there. So, better 80s song by an actor. Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy featuring Rick James, or Heartbeat by Don Johnson. There's where Don Johnson comes back in. Which one do you pick? They're both great songs. It's hard to
That
learn.
is a tough one. They're both good songs.
Both of the most awesomely bad songs of the 80s, according to VH1, but very good.
We'll give John Johnson a shout out. That's a pretty
Okay.
impressive thing to do.
I'll give Eddie Murphy a shout out on this one. I love them both. And Don Johnson used to play some with the Allman Brothers.
Oh, man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah.
I was surprised his
Sit
voice
in
was
with
that
those
good.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, his voice is actually really good, and he's a hilarious guy.
Oh yeah.
And a heartthrob from the 80s, too.
We got several actors. You know, John Schneider, Tom Wopat. All of them had great voices and came out with some great songs during the '80s.
There you go.
Yeah.
Last one, Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise? You could pick looks, you could pick acting skills, I don't care, but pick one.
Gary, go for it.
I'm gonna say Brad Pitt.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brad Pitt. Tom Cruise is kind of douchey.
Yeah, I think the Scientology thing was not great.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're almost done here. So, Carey, before we go, we want to ask you a couple questions just kind of about this area. So, the one thing that I noticed, and you actually mentioned it in your letter about property taxes, was kind of the major issues with corporate welfare in this city, where basically they asked you to pay this huge increase in taxes. And meanwhile, Justin and I in Beacon, we've been fighting against this idea that there's a hotel that you can see from here that got $180 million of property tax relief. There's all these big businesses with good connections that don't have to pay the same property taxes you have. So tell me why that's a problem for you, why you have an issue with that.
I have always been for cities to have incentives for people to come here. So I'm not completely opposed to some incentives for businesses or for large companies to come. I was an advocate of Amazon coming, but our not being shown what our city is giving away with our tax dollars is not okay. And, you know, it's okay if the city collectively feels like, hey, we should give an incentive and do this or that to get industry here and create more jobs. But when it all falls on the backs of small businesses, which is what's happening right now, it It's not falling on, with this increase, it's falling some on the homeowner, but typically it's on the back of small businesses. That's what I have a problem with. And let me clarify what our city has done to make this very clear to the listener. Most of the time when you give TIF financing or tax incremental financing, you do it in neighborhoods that are blighted, right? That need investment, that you want to turn into an opportunity center or an opportunity zone. And that's what Trump did with the opportunity zones that he created, was give incentives to make investments into neighborhoods that need it. Our city gave away amazing incentive deals for the best pieces of property in Nashville. We practically gave pieces of property away that are now worth $200 million, just the dirt, and we sold them for $5 million. And then we said, oh, and you don't pay property taxes. So not only did we give away an asset, then we turned around and we didn't get anything in return other than them saying, well, we're creating jobs. Well, we're a work at will state. We don't have any income tax, and so Tennessee's already attractive. Nashville is already attractive. Other than our schools, which are not good right now, businesses have an incentive to be here. We don't have to give away the house to bring them.
And if we don't have a house to give away as a city.
Right. Yeah, and it's a fun fact that Broadway is actually still considered blighted by the city. So if you get a Broadway place, they consider that blighted because it was in the 1960s and they've not changed that designation, which is interesting. So we'll agree 95%. We were not as for the Amazon deal as you were, but we'll agree 95%.
We're for them coming here.
Oh, for sure they're coming here, just not us giving them money.
Not us. And certainly not us not knowing what we gave them.
Exactly.
We have no idea what they got.
And they'll renegotiate it in 10 years anyway and get more money from it. That's how they seem to work. But so the last question I have, and Justin, you can kind of chime in on this too, is that I remember when I moved here, which was right about the time you all opened. I moved here in 2013, and I remember the Gulch was just kind of, there wasn't a lot here. They were kind of starting to build it up. And Peg Leg was kind of, you were the only place on this side of the Gulch. It was just you and a bunch of garages, it seemed like. So talk about what it's like for Peg Leg to kind of be one of the centerpieces of this renaissance from the Gulch, where it's like now the place that people want to go, people want to live in, and what it's been like for you as kind of one of the people who's here at the beginning, as somebody who's been responsible partially for the growth of the Gulch.
Well, we love to see the growth. Yazoo was here before we got here. Jackalope moved in, I think, around the same time. Being from Nashville, my friends and family all looked at me and they were like, "You're going where?" They were like, "Isn't that tucked away? Nobody's going to be able to find you." We had originally signed a lease up here on 8th, right next to Arnold's, and that fell through after a year of waiting on it. The owner pulled a stunt that we couldn't live with.
And you're actually in a better spot.
Yeah, it worked out well.
So it worked out well. That day that deal fell through, I thought was the worst day of my life. My wife looked at me and she said, "Everything happens for a reason." And I was like, I don't want to even hear that. And sure enough, it did. We were able to buy this building, and so it's been huge for us. We had to really shout from the rooftops where we were. We still do. There's still a lot of people in Nashville that do not know where this is because we're kind of tucked away back here. I feel very proud that this side of the Gulch is now thriving and doing well, and I think that we proved that we can bring people into this neighborhood. And Market Street has done a tremendous amount of development in this neighborhood, and they were really the pioneers when they built the first condos right above Sambuca. They really were the ones that kicked off the Gulch investment. But keep in mind, the Gulch investment has been private investment, and the city has ridden off the coattails of that private investment. And I want to clear up something that somebody wrote about me in an article. He said, well, Carey benefits from something that other people in the city don't, in the fact that his tax dollars stay in his neighborhood and don't go into the general fund. That is a lie. It's bad journalism. That journalist did not do their homework and wrote a bad article that misleads the public. In the Gulch, we pay more in property taxes. It's called the Gulch Business Improvement District. So we as a group collectively had said we're willing to pay a little bit more, and that extra incremental money is what stays in the Gulch to benefit and beautify our neighborhood. Same with the Central Business District downtown, or the CBID. And so that's what the general public needs to understand when they talk about a pedestrian bridge or about this or that. Private investment has created 25 to 3,500 new residences and 100 new businesses in an area that had none. We've created a tax base that paid for stuff like that bridge, which they just axed.
Right.
So the tax dollars have been created by private investment that pay for the improvements that you see in the Gulch, not the city.
Isn't it?
Well, and government should not be providing that, right?
Yeah.
That is the role of the private sector,
Yes.
is to do that. That's the benefit we have of free markets, is that they work when you allow them to build in places that they have opportunity for growth. And then the city does benefit from that. So this notion that you didn't build that and that you rode on the coattails of the city is ridiculous. It's the other way around, and that's the way it should be.
Yes.
Well, that's a great thing to end on. So, well, Carey, we really appreciate your time. This is a longer one than normal because we had a lot of great things to say. No, hey, this is one of our best ones. We really appreciated having you. Thank you so much for your time. Come visit Peg Leg Porker. What's the address? I know it's 908 Cleves?
903
Cleves
Street in the Gulch.
Yes, and it's great, and it's Justin, our favorite. So we'll hopefully be back at some point, but thank you for joining us. We plan to be on next month with Governor Bill Lee, so we're looking forward to that, and we'll see you guys later.